This is the American Indians, Indigenous Peoples' Truths. Justice for all, the most dangerous show on media anywhere. OCO and greetings. I'm Jay Winter Nightwolf, and this is Jay Winter Nightwolf Live. This is a special edition that we do every month. It's called a Fireside Chat, which gives each and every one of you an opportunity to ask us questions. We'll be back in just a few minutes after the news. But before that, I would like to acknowledge for a moment the traditional stewards of these lands that we reside on, and especially their ancestors, descendants, and all indigenous people who live now and have lived here forever. This land is what we call Turtle Island. So now let's go to the news with Don Walker, should I say, news from Indian country, with Chief Justice, retired of the Virginia Supreme Court, Don Walker, and one of my brothers in my tribe, the Cherokee Nation. Take it away, Don.
Thank you, Brother Nightwolf. OCO, Agi Dohe, Agi Laihe. Hello to all my brothers and sisters across this great land. From the Pacific to the Atlantic, it is all Indian country and still is. Tonight, I'm going to bring you an op-ed which reflects my opinion and my opinion only. I'm going to start by talking about three different areas of this. My three different parts to this topic is the term Indian giver, the Keystone Pipeline and other pipelines, and bullying. First, the term Indian giver. It hasn't been used as much in the last 30 or 40 years as it used to be very common. But what it means is to give somebody something and then take it back again, which is virtually what's been done to all the land and all the treaties in the United States that the U.S. government has organized with the Native Americans. I want to talk about the Keystone Pipeline and other pipelines. This thing has been a mess from day one. And there are both sides to this argument and situation, and both have to be given adequate time to come up with a reasonable solution. My position on this is a little bit different. I think that the slate should be erased, every single piece of it with a keystone, and start it over again from scratch. First, this is just a taking. It is just, again, a Indian giver operation where they're just taking this land from Native Americans. And this land that they're going across is a sovereign nation. That's a nation within the United States. No different than if we went to Canada and said, we're just going to take part of your land because we need a pipeline, or Mexico, or even Saudi Arabia. We need to all get out of the way. We're just going to take it. There's no negotiation. On this pipeline, I believe that some compromise is going to need to be reached, assuming that we do have a legitimate need for this oil that's going to be piped down. And I think the way to approach that is the First Nations that own this land hold the upper hand in this poker game. They don't have to do this. It's the oil companies and the government that want to take this land. In order for this pipeline to cross it, I suggest they negotiate it to be paid a royalty by the barrel for every barrel of oil that flows through that pipe as it crosses their land. I know the government's going to turn their nose up and say no such thing's ever going to happen. We're the big dog in the fight, and we're going to take it the way we want it. But it should be negotiated in that fashion. Get a royalty per barrel that goes through that old pipeline. Number two, considering environmental impacts. I believe security should be posted by the oil companies and the government that put enough resources aside to handle any environmental problem that develops as a result of this pipeline, whether it be a leakage, a breakage, or what have you. But that adequate security should be posted for the life of the pipeline. And third, I think security should be posted for the removal of this line because it will reach a time in its life when it is no longer of value. And I don't want to see it just abandoned across native property, which they're trying to take anyway. So surety should be posted for that in order to assure its cleanup and return to its original condition. What does all this have to do with bullying? Well, that's pretty much the way the government handles this. They're going to really have a fit when the First Nations say, look, we want to get paid by the barrel that flows through this pipeline. They should get something for this, not just, well, you're lucky we're here and we're doing something. That's very important, and I think they should push that from a negotiating position. At the same time, on the other side of this argument with the pipeline, there's other people that are part of this formula that have been hurt badly. Now, I sympathize with the workers that relocated there for long-term, secure, highly skilled jobs. Then all of a sudden that rug was pulled out from under them. They had no knowledge that was going to happen, and they still need to support themselves, their lifestyle, and their families. So there's two sides here, but this needs to be worked out, but worked out from a position of strength. And that concludes that for my op-ed this evening. Whether you agree with me or don't agree with me is up to you. I'm Don Walker, and I'm going to take it back to Jay Nightwolf. Thank you.
Thank you, Don, for that interesting commentary. And I can't agree with you more. You know, if you're going to take something from somebody or take over somebody something, you got to have a conversation with them and get them to agree with what you're doing. And if they don't agree with it, then the hell with them. But anyway.
Well, Jay, we've worried about bullying. It's in the schools, it's in the media, it's in everything else, but they never address it to First Nations. And that is a prime example of the ultimate bullying, where the government just said, get out of the way. We're going to take it over and do what we want. And that's wrong. They ought to address bullying there.
Absolutely. So, you know, I heard this week that the Waldorf Astoria hotel chain purchased Trump International, which was the old post office,
Leslie, have we lost Jay temporarily? Leslie, have we lost Jay? Maybe the government just shut him down.
All right, everybody, can you hear me? Do I have everybody still here? I think we had a couple of people drop. If you can hear me, can you give me a thumbs up? Or can our audience let us know? All right, thank you so much. Thank you for staying. We seem to have some problems. Elder Nightwolf, he lost his power in his home. So we're going to bring everybody in to, thanks, Joey. We're going to bring everybody into the broadcast to continue our discussion, and hopefully we can get the rest of our crew back in. So I'm going to bring everybody in.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. All right. Can I have you all introduce yourselves? And Don, would you like to come in and into the discussion? All right. I'm going to bring you in, Don, because it looks like we lost some of our other guests during this issue.
I think the oil companies were listening in and they're retaliating now about my comments.
I honestly feel that might be correct. And they completely shut down Elder Nightwolf's house.
Oh, yeah.
They're like, yeah, he's the culprit. We're going to shut it down. So I'll try to get everybody's comments in as well. But please introduce yourselves for our audience members this evening. Judith, you can go first.
Hi, everyone.
First, please.
I am so pleased to be here. My name is Judith Foster. I am a born immigrant from Jamaica. I am a naturalized citizen, just in case immigration's listening. And I currently live in Boston. I run and I've created a nonprofit, and that's what drew Jay and I together. I was broadcasting during 2015. He and I met at the DNC in Philadelphia. But aside from that, my nonprofit is called the Hero Nurturing Center. Hero stands for Healing, Empathy, Redemption Oasis. You can find me on Facebook, and we have a website, heronurturingcenter.com. And simply put, we use nature as a healing conduit. And the more people that I get to support this, the better, so that we can have legislation that mandates maybe when you go to the doctor's office, the first thing that your physician may do is to prescribe a jaunt through nature if you're suffering from traumas that you can't see, yes? In combination with other things, I'm not obscuring pharmaceuticals, but let's find out some natural ways how to soothe us, because the things that we've been doing isn't working. With that, I thank you for having me.
Thank you, Judith. Okay, and can we have Genevieve? Can you please introduce yourself to us, please?
Greetings. My name is Genevieve TEXTERA, and I am Ponca from the Ponca Nation. I'm a grandmother, a mom, and this is what I do. This is me.
All right,
Nothing very outstanding or anything. I'm just the ordinary woman.
No, you're not ordinary. You're a grandmother, and that makes you exceptional.
Yes.
That makes you exceptional. That means that you have a family, and it takes a lot to raise a family.
Yes, it does.
You are a phenomenal woman. So
Thank
you are
you.
not just anything. You are a phenomenal woman, mother, and grandmother.
When I say anything, that means everybody. Every woman, every man, every child, everybody.
Yep, I agree.
The ordinary.
I agree. All right. Uh-oh, we lost her. Chief Burley, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, good evening. And I'm very glad to be here. And it's grateful to hear and be a part of this. I am the hereditary chief of the Ponca Nation. My family and nation's engagement with the United States began in 1804 on September the 5th, when Lewis and Clark came upon our allodial lands in what is now Nebraska. My family would then go on to be engaged in treaties with the United States. They were treaties of friendship. I happen to hold what appears to be a very sui generis document that was given to my great-great-grandfather, Mitchell Washkamoni Seri, who was a part of the Ponca removal and who was there at the time that Machunaze, or Standing Bear, took his case to the federal courts, and it was decided that an Indian would be considered a person within the meaning of the law. He expatriated from the tribe in order to achieve that, though. So anyway, I hold a document that's the only one that goes all the way back to the original document that was given to our family and people, which is the promise of friendship. And my people ceded a lot of land, and I'm in the process of trying to find a remedy, as I would say. It's a tall order, but I seek a remedy to right the wrongs for a people who have been deemed the friendliest of all the indigenous nations and have never violated any of the stipulations of our treaties. So I remain as they did, in the same manner as they did, with the hopes that those folks who sit up high and look down low will realize the importance of friendship. And that's who I am. And Genevieve and I were raised as brother and sister, even though we're cousins. And she's named after my grandmother, who was part of a historical action in 1904, the St. Louis World's Fair. There you are. Hi, you're back, Jenny. That World's Fair was quite an event. They brought indigenous people from all over the world, so that the American anthropologists could begin to examine our lifestyle, so to speak. So I met Jay, and it's been a roller coaster ride ever since. And that's who I am, and that's a part of it. It's just a part of it. But I'm very grateful to be speaking with you all right now.
Thank you, Chief Burley. We really appreciate that. And we've got Elder Nightwolf back. Can you hear us, Elder?
I can hear you, but I can't see you, but I'm trying to get back in.
Okay. I have to tell you, Genevieve and Chief Burley, you all look like my people. So it's really like, I'm like, my heart is pumping because I miss my family so much. So thank you so much for joining. And then Judge John Walker, do you just kind of want to speak a little bit so that we can verify your presence here on the panel? Basically, you were kind of like drumming you in. Can you just let the audience know a little bit about you?
Yes, thank you, Leslie. My name is Don Walker, and I am here by the blessings of the Creator to be brother to Jay Winter Nightwolf. We often view brotherhood or sisterhood as biological, but not in the eyes of the Creator. In the eyes of the Creator, He decides who is our brothers or sisters. I'm a member of the Achota tribe of Alabama. I'm very proud of that. I have retired from the Virginia Judicial, although I'm still employed in family business. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you, Judge John Walker. And my name is Les Fry. I'm the executive producer of Jay Winter Nightwolf Live. I am of Choctaw and Catawba Cherokee heritage. I usually sit here on this panel because I am someone who is just like a lot of our audience members. I am learning and I am studying. So I'm very grateful to be here always because I glean a lot of information from these panels. So if you are an audience member this evening, please, please, please put your questions in the chat and we will try to answer them to the best of our ability with the elders and all of the knowledgeable individuals that we have here this evening. I'm going to start off with a question. My question this evening is, this is Native American Heritage Month. We can see you. Can you hear us?
I can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. This is Native American Heritage Month. And my question to all of you all is, what is the best way that we can celebrate and remember our heritage this month? Our heritage is mostly a tragic heritage based here in Turtle Island. But what do you feel would be the best way to celebrate this entire month as we close it out? Anybody can answer that question.
Leslie, I'll
Judith,
kick
Okay.
that off if it's all right with you. I
Sure.
think we should tread lightly on Turtle Island and stand tall as First Nations. Thank you.
Thank you, Don Walker. And anybody else?
Judith Foster, why don't you bring some light to that?
That our traditions, our cultural traditions, need to be revisited and reinstituted and taught to all of our young. And I think that's one of the best ways that we can start to celebrate.
Okay.
Anyone else? Genevieve?
Handing down stories. I mean, our ancestors were the memory keepers. So we need to carry that on. You know, Earl and I are kind of the last of us that we're trying to hold our children dear to us and let them know the struggles, the love, the tradition of being a family, Native, an extended family. And you're absolutely right. DNA does not say what family members are. Love is what family members are.
I can't agree with you more. You're absolutely correct. When many times when I've gone out to Indian country, Oklahoma, North, South Dakota, Colorado, all of that, they never asked me for my DNA. They never asked me for my tribal card. They asked me, who's your family? And when I started telling my family names, they knew right away. Because see, that whole tribal card and federal recognition crap is exactly that. You know, you can't pedigree us. And that's what they've been trying to do for 600 years. They've been trying to pedigree us. You pedigree dogs and horses and animals, not people. We know who we are. We have been here since time immemorial, and we've been on this land as far back as anybody can remember. Other people came here. Yes, they did. People came here across the Bering Strait, the bridge. Some came from Africa. Some came from all parts of the world. But as far as the original people, we were always here. And then you get these arguments from folks that want to reinvent creation and tell you, well, you know, Africans, no. My answer to that is, who did these people meet when they came here? We were already here. So we need to celebrate who we are, where we are, and how far we can go back. We should acknowledge our heritage, respect our elders and ancestors, remembering who we are and where and what we will become. You know, we can talk about all the tragic things that happened to us, and God knows it's been a lot of them. But we're here in the present, and what can we do to make it better for our generations to come behind us, the next 7 generations? What can we leave them? You know, I think we should all be out in the streets protesting against Joe Biden dragging his feet on
Climate change.
the climate change.
Climate changing, yes.
Because we've got a window of maybe 50 years, right, Don? That if we don't do something to turn this around, this earth will not be habitable for anything living. So this is what we need to be doing. Okay, I got a question here. How is it the pale man claiming to be Aboriginal of America? Why are we so inclusive? Isn't that how American Indians, okay, here we go, AKA Aborigines, lost our land in the first place? No. You know, you talk about this pale man. This man did not come here with good intentions. He came here through genocidal practices, bringing diseases to us that we had no immunity to, and on and on and on and on. So, no, I don't agree with that philosophy.
So what he's saying, though, Elder Nightwolf, is that we're such a giving people. We were never, primarily when we had people coming here to Turtle Island over 50,000 years ago, and you said it before, the Phoenicians, people believe that the Vikings came here, and Africans coming from Mali. We never ever encountered what we encountered when the Europeans came here. And so we embraced a lot of the Europeans when they came here, assuming that they were going to be like the other encounters that we had in the past. So he's saying, basically, this person is saying that, and I have to, Bravehawk, I have to try to just decipher this for you. There are a lot of us that are of mixed heritage sitting here on this panel. We are mixed here. So you cannot call someone a pale man, because indigenous is indigenous. It does not matter what you are. As long as you have that blood in you, you are still indigenous. So you can't make this an issue of color. You have to make it an issue of being indigenous or non-indigenous, period.
Did you know that they had, in comparison, Indians in Europe, they were called the Samis. And they were the ones that were considered to be the Indians of Europe. But nobody talks about that. We're all one family, one human family worldwide. And we need to recognize that your brother do not have to look like you to be your brother, or your sister either. It's not about color. It's not about traditions or any of that stuff, or the food you eat or the clothes you wear. What it's really all about is how you treat my heart. That's what it's all about. Wouldn't you agree, Don Walker?
I fully agree with that, Jay. That's exactly what it's about. That was my comment about being a brother to you. Doesn't mean it's biological. It means it's done by the Creator and it's from the heart.
That's right. Judith, I see you shaking your head.
Well, absolutely. I tell the story of when we first met, right? And who you said that I reminded you of and that I look like, Jay. And you didn't know that I was from Jamaica. You didn't know me at all. Mm-hmm. But yet you picked me out as your sister, yes?
Yes, it was your heart. Your heart spoke to me.
Absolutely. And the heart has eyes. Yeah.
Yes. And Judith and I were.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. We hear it all. But Judith and I met in Boston, right?
In Philadelphia, Jay.
In Philadelphia, when they had the Democratic National Convention, when Hillary Clinton was running. And ever since then, we've been brother and sister friends.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So go ahead, Leslie. I see you shaking your head. Give it up.
No, it's something that I've learned, learning and finding my heritage and stuff, is that people of color here in America, we have all suffered through the same type of pain. It doesn't matter what it is. The separation of us as a family, as a whole, period. The misclassification of us as people that are Aboriginal to the U.S. or the natives of this island, Turtle Island, we were misclassified. We basically have suffered consistent genocide within this country. If it wasn't residential schools, if it wasn't, the death by paper, death by the census,
paper genocide.
Yes, death by slavery. something that was said last on your radio show this week by Shonda
You can.
Buchanan. She stated that there were Native American women who appeared to be of dark melanated skin or African skin that were captured by slave capturers and sold into slavery.
Mm-hmm.
And this was because we were misidentified by color and not by origin. So understand that when we talk about these things, the pain is very deep for all of us. And it doesn't serve us well if we're struggling or talking about who was here first. The problem is, what are we going to preserve for the generations that are coming after us? The truth, the stories, the traditions. What are we going to do from this point on?
Absolutely.
Well,
And
you know
in that-
what? Since we are all one family, human family, we need to learn how to start talking to each other instead of talking at each other. We need to form a bond, the reintroduction of the human family. And the only way we can do that is to sit down and talk to each other and find out the truth.
But didn't that happen when COVID happened? I mean, a lot of people had to reassess their lives and what they were doing, and they sat down at the table and started talking to each other because they were confined.
That's right. They had nowhere to go. And this whole thing about this pandemic, I'm sorry. I believe it was a plandemic to separate us as human beings and reclassify people and try to put some people above other people. Nobody is any better than anybody else. I don't give a damn where you're from or what your religion is. It don't make a difference. We all have one concrete commonality. We're all human beings. And we need to start acting and treating people, other people that we meet, as if they're human beings.
And that brings me to something that I think needs to be talked about more prevalently. When Genevieve said that, you know, we come from a friendly, and Les said it, we come from friendly and loving and kind people by nature. And so that nurturing and empathy that we've always known is cultural, right? That nurturing spirit that we all have. I think that if we promote that more, having our outdoor gatherings more so in nature than we are ever have been doing before, right? Let's get back to nature. Let's do things outdoors versus inside the buildings. And if COVID hasn't taught us anything, right, is that we need to appreciate Mother Nature even more than we have been.
Well,
You're right.
I hope it regenerates old feelings, like when you said, let's go back outdoors. We weren't outdoors before. Even before COVID, we were indoors. We couldn't let our children go out and play.
Let me correct that. Most Americans were indoors. So again, when I go back to Jamaica often, and I'm an outdoor lover, I love the trees.
Beautiful. Yes.
I love outside. And so for me, I promote nature. My nonprofit is all about using nature as a healer. And so I believe, you know, the native Aborigines, original peoples, we're outdoor folks. When we go to Jamaica, yes, you're under a tree, having the meetings, having the conversations.
I remember when I was a kid.
That far?
I'm gonna get you. But anyway, I remember when I was a kid that we didn't have any fears of going outside and playing all day. During the summer when we were out of school, we would play, go out 9 o'clock in the morning after we had breakfast, and me and all the other little boys and even the girls in the neighborhood, we head over to the woods. And we had ropes on trees, not the kind you hang anybody with, but we would swing on those ropes and just have a good time. And then you would hear somebody's mother calling, okay, it's lunchtime. And a lot of times I found myself at somebody else's house having beans and hot dogs.
Yeah.
Because we took care of each other. We were community. So we need to bring that whole community thing back. And And we need to start talking to our young people because they've gotten so far off the track. You know, I say this all the time to all of you young men that are standing on a corner thinking that you're a thug or a drug dealer. You need to put your gun down and read a book about who your people are.
Elder Nightwolf, I couldn't agree with you more. I live in a community right now where people do not take care of the land. You know, they don't know who they are. And so the land around us is trash. I mean, I've literally seen people throw trash off their cars while they've been driving down the street. And it's because they have no connection to this environment because they are unaware of who they are and what they come from. And the strength in knowing who you are is being knowledgeable, reading, knowing who your people are, going far back and finding out who your people are. Our people today, and especially people of color within what we call the Black community, cannot go past a certain generation in their family. So if they're consistently growing up not knowing their heritage, they're not going to care about the environment around them. And they're fighting over blocks that don't belong to them. They're living in situations that, you know, and destroying situations around them because they don't care about, you know, they believe that the government owns everything. But understand that that is an inheritance to you. Any of you who are of indigenous heritage, any of you who are of African heritage, the land is important to us.
And you know
Gifted
what?
them that the land will be good to you if you are good to the land.
That's right.
You know, I was talking to some young guys not too far from where I live, and they were just hanging on the corner, right? And I said, well, what are you guys doing? What are you going to do in the future? I don't know. What's your name? I said, is it your first or your last name? No, I'm trying to tell you. Now, open your mouth and speak. You know, put your words out there. And I met with quite a few of the older men that I know in this Washington metropolitan area. And now we're talking about putting together an elders circle because our children and young people need to be taught. They don't know. And in most cases, it's not their fault.
No, it's not. It's
You know,
not.
when they come from a home that they don't know who their father is, or mama is strung out on crack or whatever, then they don't have anybody to look up to. So I think it's incumbent upon all of us, men and women, to form these talking circles like we used to have. And
just like we're having right now.
Yes.
Just like we're having right now. Elder, I am very sorry to interrupt you, but we have so many questions. People are flooding the channels with questions, and we have to get through our questions.
Okay. Well, let me see them.
Okay, so here we go. This is another one from Braveheart, and I think we've already answered this question. Why were the Aborigines, aka Indians, east of the Mississippi misclassified as Black, Negro, mulatto, etc.? And I think that we addressed that.
I can answer that. That was because of a man, an evil white man by the name of Walter Plecker in Virginia, that when a native child was born, he would not allow that to be put on their birth certificate. So that's called paper genocide. And they grew up not knowing who they were. A mulatto, what is that? We're not mulattoes. We're not Negroes. We're human beings, you know, so stop putting these labels on us. And that fool died. He was called the father of paper genocide. And you young men standing on the corner, look up Walter Plecker, Plecker, and you'll find out why you're in the predicament that you're in, because your identity was stolen from you.
Can I also add to that?
Yeah, let me make one more statement to that.
Go ahead.
Okay. 90% of all people that are walking around and calling themselves Black or African American, I got a question for you. What tribe did you come from in Africa? So how did you get to be an African American? Were your mom and dad from Africa? Did they come here and gave birth to you? So, you know, that's a misnomer. You know, they're always trying to classify us and reclassify us and categorize us and pedigree us. And, you know, like I've always said, and I say it again, all white people are not bad, just like all black people and Indians are not good. We need to get beyond that. Okay, somebody trying to say something?
I believe that Chief Burley is trying to say something.
Brother Cousin.
Oh no, I was just listening to Jay and the question itself. You know, the Supreme Court has decided that certificate or degree of Indian blood quantum is not something that can be used to deny a person's indigenous status. Often it was done, and you ask yourself, well, to what purpose? Obviously, it was meant to, you know, for us to breed ourselves away from being who we are, and these things were done for specific reasons, so that eventually any claims to the land would not have standing. We know who we are, and we stand on that. And yes, it's been a struggle, you know, bringing all the information together, but it is important to know who you are and where you came from and who your people were. But I look at the youth today, and they don't do what we're doing right now, which is sitting, speaking to one another. Everything is, you know, thumbs down. They communicate very short sentences, so they don't know how to sit and orally speak. They're unaware of how that happens and the importance of those stories that our grandparents and our mothers and fathers provided to us about who we were. So, you know, the struggle continues, and this event and events like this do help, and they provide an opportunity to show people ways to find out who they are and pursue that, because you don't feel like you're a part of it, and yet we've been the major part of this country being what it is. It would not be here without us. So glad I could share that little bit of information.
Thank you, Chief Burley. I wanted to, in my research, and as you all know, I'm still discovering my heritage. I learned something. I learned that there was a time when, and a lot of us did not come here on slave ships. I just want to let you all know that we did not come here on slave ships. Even if you were of black hair, if you were of African heritage, there were a lot of people that came here that were from Africa that did not come on a slave ship. They came here to be laborers. They came here to work. They came just like every European person that came here for opportunity. So don't believe that mentality that you were part of this race of people that came here enslaved, because if you think that you're enslaved, you're going to have an enslaved mind. There were Black people, Native American people, and poor white people who worked alongside each other before the early 1700s, I believe, before they started classifying us as mulatto, mestizo, Black, or whatever. This was all about socioeconomic status. You were either rich or you were either poor. But understand that when we were people that were of a poor status, people who were not of means, we intermingled with one another and we intermarried with one another. So you'll have somebody like Crispus Attucks, who was Native American and Black, or George Bongo. All of these people were later identified as Black, when in all honesty, they were of mixed heritage, having identity in both Native American heritage and Black or European heritage. So when you go back, understand that a lot of us did not come here enslaved. It was not until they started the genocide, the paper genocide of the census report, that we became this Black African American. Because understand that mulattoes and mestizos could own land. They could own land. But when you were Black, you had no rights. You could not own land. So understand it was more of us here at that time, and they needed a way to identify us so that we would not inherit anything.
I'd love for you to go further into that, Les. Yes, because that relates to the whole idea of every so often, you're the historian here, maybe 50 or so many years, there's a reclassification. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma a couple of years ago said that the blood quantum thing is out, and you don't have to show any kind of degree of blood quantum to be a Native American. That was their way of trying to separate us from our own people.
Yes, and it is believed that you are the majority of us that are here that are identified as African American or Black per se. 90 to 95% of us are of indigenous heritage.
That's true.
Of indigenous heritage, and that doesn't make you less indigenous. That just makes you not in touch.
Right.
That's what it means. Because if you're not pursuing that part of yourself, then you're denying everything that came before you as your identity. If you are thinking you're a slave, then that's where you're going to be.
So let me take you somewhere else. The U.S. Constitution, which was actually stolen from the Six Nations in New York, from what they called the Great Law of Peace. And in the Constitution, I think they did this by mistake, that said it should be for the people and by the people. And if it's no longer for the people or by the people, then it is your right to abolish that Constitution and bring about one that is truly for and by the people.
True.
And Jay, I'm so glad you mentioned that. And I don't know if the judge wants to speak to this, but as a citizen of this United States for the last 40 years, I often wonder, because Cuba right now is rewriting their constitution. Other nations have been known to do this. When it comes to this country, America, is it when you mention either an amendment or some kind of revision, it's, as if, you want to tear down the entire United States. Why is that?
Do you know these people that we're talking about that came here from Europe? They were chased out of Europe by the crown heads of Europe because they didn't like them. And these are the folks that came over here and started this mess that we live today. It's called subjugation. And so we find ourselves in a very precarious situation, and we need to do something about that,
Oh, yeah. The Constitution needs to be rewritten. I've been thinking about this for a long time, and unfortunately, I didn't have the resources to go and be a lawyer or a judge and be in the position to have meaningful change come this way. But I think it's time for this discussion needs to be had.
I agree with you totally. And remember, too, not only were they people that were ousted by Europe, we had criminals here. This was a penal colony, as well as Australia. It was a penal colony. Yeah. So we had a government set up by criminals, literally.
Nothing that came over here from Europe back then was aristocratic. Think about it. And the British, I hold them in the deepest contempt because they've done so many terrible things everywhere in the world they went. It's been nothing but, they brought their priests, they brought their Bible, they brought their diseases, they brought. The
double D's, death and destruction.
Exactly. So now that we're talking about this, what do we do to take care of this situation? I'm certainly not going to give up my friends that just happen to be European that I know got my back.
Oh, no.
And I'm certainly not going to give up my Black brothers and sisters, because we are all in the same boat.
And so this is why we ought to go back to Mother Nature. Yeah. And I'm sure that the elders can speak to this, where we all would gather under the tree. The tree doesn't have a color, right? We all used to sit and gather in the circle around the fire and break bread.
The important thing that we have to realize is that there are a lot of European people, or people that appear to be European, that are allies and advocates to us. And I would say accomplices, because if it had not been for the power that they had just based on their white skin, there are a lot of things that we could not have achieved without that.
Oh, absolutely.
We lived, you know, these people were able to navigate two worlds by advocating for people of color. So you just can't negate all of that and say that all white people are bad. You just can't say that. And there a lot of us have European ancestry, you know, and it was not by rape or molestation or anything like that, or any of
Love.
these things.
There was
There was
love.
love relationships. I'm the product of that. I'm the product of a love relationship between a white Irish woman and a black man who she freed, her and her family freed. So this is what I'm saying. To hate that part of yourself is not embracing all of you are. You cannot say that. There were people who supported us, and it was important for us to have those people for our survival. I do want to mention this here with Starchild was saying that he had so-called black ancestors who had so-called slaves. That is absolutely true. It happened. Don't think that ideology did not happen for people of color here. There were Native Americans who had slaves. It was a way of life here. Now, they may not have treated us the way that Europeans treated us as slaves. And go ahead, Elder, what you were going to say.
You know, in a lot of cases, Native people that had slaves, they actually took them in and protected them. And it wasn't a thing of chattel slavery with them. And they married into the tribes, and that's why we got this big issue of the freedmen. Because in North Carolina, the freedmen, blacks that were taken into the tribes and worked together, and they married each other. So I don't understand what the problem is, other than a British thing. You know, and getting back to what you said, Leslie, it is estimated that some 50,000 convicts were sent to the Americas this way. And the majority landed in the Chesapeake colonies of Maryland and Virginia. They transported convicts, represented perhaps 1/4 of the British that left the country during the 18th century. You know, they left. They were pushed out and they had nowhere to go. So they headed west. And guess what happened? They landed here. So a lot of these rules and regulations and all this other mess is all bogus, because guess what? It was authored by these people that were convicts from Europe.
So if we can get back to, you know, the conversation that someone said that the children need to, you know, learn to have these conversations, get away from their phones. But you must remember, we were raised at the feet of our parents, where they would invite us to places where the conversation wasn't, say, on a gossip level. It was about inner things and growth and character. So I think we are the responsible ones. We are the elders now, who it's our duty to make ourselves available and not so distant from those young people who need to hear these things. We need to meet them where they're at, not have them, wait for them to come to us.
Well, I just found out 10 years ago that my grandmother, who was a Taino Indian from Puerto Rico, had 2 sisters here in the United States.
Wow.
And now I got all these cousins that I met over the last 10 years. And I'm saying, wow, so what happened? And then I remember my grandmother, her name was Sylvia Robles Cruz Delgado. That was my grandma, And one thing about our grandmothers back then, if you got it wrong, they knew how to get you right. They would march us out to the tree and tell you to climb the tree. I want that switch. Which one? The one on the end of that branch. But I may fall off the tree. You know what they told us? If you do, I'm going to kill you. Because I don't want you to hurt yourself.
Well, Jay, there the Carlisle boarding school for Indians had indigenous people from Puerto Rico
Yeah.
as the nation or tribe on the. I mean, they were listed as Puerto Rican, but that was the nation to which they belonged. And I found many there, and Dominican as well. The island that they came from, that was a tribe that they considered them. So
Yeah.
they were here, and they're indigenous. I mean, we know this, and Jamaica received a lot of indigenous who were shipped from the Americas to Jamaica.
And Columbus started that mess.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
kind of did. He kind of
You know
did.
what?
And I'm glad you mentioned that, Chief. I apologize for interrupting you, because I've been traveling most of my adult life, and I've been on airplanes where the stewardess or the pilot will be from North Carolina, and they think that I'm from there, and I'm straight from Jamaica.
Yeah. I've spent time in Jamaica. It's a beautiful place.
Okay, now can I bring something to you all's attention? There are 7 ways to teach our kids their heritage. 1, you start with the earlier generations. 2, you learn with food. 3, virtual visits to museums and exhibits. 4, you incorporate traditions of your people. 5, educate with books and movies. 6, learn the languages of your people. And 7, explore your family tree. Now, if we can start doing that in small circles and influencing our young people, that these are the things that you want to know who you are, these are the things you need to do to find out. How do you feel about that, Leslie?
I agree with you. One of the first things that as I said, I'm learning here, and I'm learning about my heritage. I always knew that we were Native American. I always knew we were Choctaw. But the thing is, and I've said this before, our family can't go anywhere past my Choctaw fourth great grandmother, because it was almost as if they cut off the limb of that tree so that we would not know who her people were. But what I decided to do outside of searching for her, because she was very prominent, she was a very important figure in the survival of my grandfather, who was sold into slavery because he was the child of a white man and a native girl. Basically, he was sold into indentured servitude. I started learning about her people. I'm taking classes now where I'm learning Choctaw. I'm learning that because I want to make sure that she knows that I am continuing her legacy and I'm not forgetting her. And even if she is not present here, she knows that I'm immersing myself into her people so I can find her and continue to pass that down to my nieces and nephews, that they are proud of that heritage and know where they came from. So the first thing is, I can claim that I'm Indigenous or Aboriginal or First Nation all I want to, but if I'm not making the effort to find my people, to learn their traditions, to speak their language, then I'm just nothing but a squeaky wheel. I'm nothing.
And you know, one person, my good friend, I think all of you know who he is, Dennis Banks, who is the founder of the American Indian movement. And that's his picture right there on a horse. He always talked about our people need to know from whence they came. And then we would have a better understanding of our future, which is so true. And that's the one thing we need to do. We need to learn, pick up a book and watch a movie of good taste, to find out the facts about who we are. Because as long as you walk around and don't know who the hell you are, then like Dr. King says, a man that won't stand up for something will fall for anything.
Yeah. Well, can I invite everybody to take a look at a documentary called Standing Bear's Footsteps?
Mm-hmm.
It's about a Native American chief who fought the government and won the first time. It's called Standing Bear's Footsteps, and that's how you can learn a little bit about Genevieve and my history, our history. It's a pretty good story. And when I stop and think about the struggles of the ancestors, what I'm doing is nothing. I mean, they looked it face on, straight on. They lived it and still managed to maintain their dignity and respect for who they were.
They paid the price. They paid the price. And, history gives us the opportunity to learn from past mistakes. It helps us to understand and the many reasons why people may believe the way they do. As a result, it helps us to become more compassionate as people and more impartial as decision makers. Once you start studying from whence you came, everything will change. Your whole psyche will change. I've always talked about this. I was on a radio station out of Washington, D.C. for 22 years. And I always spoke of the human family, not the Indian family, not the European family, but the human family. We're all interconnected, period. That's what it's all about. Some folks got up on the wrong foot and they went crazy. Some folks tried to resist that and they got beat down or enslaved. So where do we go from here? That's what I want to know. We got 50 years to get this thing straight, or we won't be able to live on this planet because we are destroying Mother Earth, the planet that the Creator gave us. And if we don't get that correct, what are we going to leave behind for our next 7 generations?
I think that we're so busy fighting over who was here first. We're not worried about who's going to be here last.
Most of these people that are arguing about it don't even know who the hell they are.
Well, this is quite true.
Well, Jay said something prolific just now. Where do we go from here? My last broadcast was just that. Where do we go from here? That was the title of Martin Luther King Jr.'s last book that he wrote in 1967. Where do we go from here? Chaos or community? So, again, I'm throwing it to our elders. You have the wisdom and the knowledge, right? Don't take it with you. As Jay said, how do we teach our young? Well, move around like the elders did back in the day. Come and meet people where they are. Have these outdoor sessions. Yeah. And who wants to come and invite folks and repeat and rinse and repeat. And the old fashioned way, the old grassroots way.
And when you have these outside sessions, bring plenty of fresh fruit. And
absolutely.
You'll be very surprised how people will connect to Mother Earth.
Yes.
All right.
I wish I could run to Jamaica and pull a mango off the tree.
Let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, we need to move on. I am so sorry because we have so many questions in here and we're not getting these questions in here.
Okay, we'll throw them at us.
So someone asked us, could we speak about the Cherokee War of, I believe, 1712? Let me find that one. 1776 in South Carolina. Can we speak to the war about the Cherokees in 1776 in South Carolina?
Who want to take that one?
I can't.
Okay.
If we're unable to answer this question, we will definitely have.
What it was a series of conflicts and raids between American colonists and native Cherokee tribes. The cause of these conflicts were due in part to the western expansion of the frontiersmen into Cherokee lands and western North Carolina. That's what they was. It was all about them making their expansion west and getting more land and taking stuff from people. And I don't know, it wasn't Thomas Jefferson, but the Trail of Tears. That was all the outcome of that, the Trail of Tears.
Absolutely, Jay.
Because they were taking people's lands and killing them, and those that he couldn't kill, they put them on a journey from the southeastern part of the United States all the way to Oklahoma. And they don't talk about the hundreds of thousands of people that died on that trail.
And even beyond, because that territory was hostile, and the folks who were still coming over to the new land, they were vying for territory as well.
That's true.
A small point. One of the first presidents that considered sending troops to uphold the treaty rights of indigenous people in the Carolinas and Georgia was John Quincy Adams.
Right.
He considered sending troops down there to Georgia, to telling them that what they were doing was in violation of a U.S. treaty. He didn't send them, but he's the first one to consider that.
And you know, it was also General Griffith Rutherford and Captain William Moore that led attacks against the Cherokee in July of 1776, doing a punitive expedition, destroying 5 Cherokee towns and killing around 50 to 60 Cherokee. And they only suffered minor losses. But the expedition, Rutherford also led militiamen to the town of Kauai. Being overpowered and outnumbered, the Cherokee people offered peace to the American people. This conflict was known as the Battle of Kauai Gap. After the destruction and loss that the Cherokee people endured, the majority of the Cherokee settlement signed the Treaty of DeWitt's Corner in 1777. And that's why I say it's so important for us to teach our children these histories and get them a book that they could learn from.
Let's not to mention the Seminole Wars that went on for over 10 years here in the U.S. that we don't talk about because it was a catastrophic loss for the U.S. government. We don't talk about that and the intersection of the Maroons and the Seminoles as a people fighting against the encroachment of Europeans into Florida because they knew the land. The Aboriginals down there knew the land. The Europeans didn't. They were successful for over 10 years. The U.S. government lost over $2 million in that war and over 5,000 in casualties.
And you know the other thing too, when God, I can't think of his name right now. I got CRS. But anyway, when the Union troops went into the Seminole country, they were made into gator bait because they didn't know how to navigate those swamps. And the Seminoles never lost that war, but they don't want to tell you that.
No, they don't want to.
Andrew Jackson.
They don't, Jay. And Billy Bowlegs is obviously still with us.
Yeah, that's right. Billy Bowlegs, one of the chiefs of the Seminole people. And that was the place where enslaved Africans ran to. You know, they didn't all get on Harriet Tubman's venture to the north.
Railroad.
The railroad, the Underground Railroad. They actually went south and the Seminoles took them in. So it was like a place of survival.
And you also have to remember there's another piece. I'm sorry. There's another piece to this. During the 18th century, you know, there's a huge fur trade that was going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the buffaloes were being slaughtered and, you know, all of that. And remember, fur back then was caught, you know, a lot of money was being made by, you know, the killing of the cattle.
Yeah. And, you know, not only that, you know, the wool felt hats or the felt hats, that came from the furs from animals that they captured and killed here. And that was big business then. That was like the diamonds back then.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the Chickamauga Cherokees, I just saw something. What was that one? Bring it back.
Oh, no, the Braveheart was saying that he is a Chickamauga Cherokee blood in his veins.
Well, you're not the only one, Braveheart, because on my Cherokee side, I am Chickamauga as well.
All right, so we are a little bit over time. We have had so many questions here. I do want to answer one more question. Braveheart has had a lot to say, and I kind of want to address something that he has said in here, and he made a comment about the fact that the falsity of DNA tests, saying that a lot of Aboriginal people were taken over to Africa, and we do know that to be true. That a lot of Aboriginals here in the U.S. were taken over to Europe and to Egypt, and now are classified as African. So what we know as a DNA test today isn't really that valid, because there was such an intermingling of people at that time. To say that you are of African American heritage or that you're of Native American heritage really doesn't identify any validity.
Many of Columbus's voyages back to Spain, in the whole of his ship, he had captured Native American people from the islands. He never came to the mainland. Let's get that straight now. And when he took them back to Spain, he gave them to the deacons of the villages, and they sold them into slavery. Also, talk about Egypt. The British doing I forget what war it was. An Egyptian leader captured one of the British colonels, and they couldn't get up the Nile River because they didn't know how to navigate the waters. But they came here and made a deal with Mohawk people and told them, you guys can navigate up waters. So if you go with us and help us find, our general or colonel, we will pay you and bring you back here. But guess what? By the time they got there, they had already slain the man. And then they didn't live up to their end of the bargain, and they left them there in Egypt. And they wonder why all of these canoes were at the foot of these pyramids. Those were Mohawk canoes.
Can I also add, Elder, to that you can do a DNA test that goes back 50,000 years. That's probably where your true identity is. That's where your true identity lies. If you don't do a modern day DNA test, do one that traces your what do you call it? What's the word? Ancient DNA. That's who you are.
Your mitochondrial DNA.
Yes, exactly.
That's
Do your that's where you're going to find it. And let's just put one more question in here, and this is from Aunt Ing, and then we're definitely going to have to close up for the evening. We're going a little bit over. And thank you everybody who's put in a question this evening. We're very sorry that we weren't able to get to the questions, but come back next month, and we will be having a fireside chat. So hopefully you can re-ask your questions at that time. So this is Aunt Ing's last question here. What is stopping the people from building a nation within the nation? Your thoughts, please. What is stopping our people from building a nation within a nation?
Well, you know what? As much as a lot of people don't like this man, I like him. Minister Louis Farrakhan. He has been making efforts to try to build a nation within this nation. But, one of the things that get in our way of doing things together is this religions that we have. Religions were a tool used to separate people. If we can get past the whole religion thing, then maybe we could do something. I have to sign off now, but Leslie, you got it.
All righty. So thank you all for coming and joining us this evening. Thank you, our audience members, for sitting around the fireside with us. I know all of us have a lot to say. I learn something every time I come to one of these panels. Can I get maybe a revisit from you all? Can you come back again? Genevieve, Chief Burley, Judith, can you come back and assist us again?
So
Absolutely. That'd be my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. We will be back next Wednesday as we do a little bit of information about the true meaning of Thanksgiving. Hold on one second. Thank you all once again for joining us. Have a blessed evening. Please stay safe.
You as well.
Please, please, please make yourself knowledgeable. Learn who you are, learn about your people, and sit around and listen and get information from your elders. They are our story keepers. They are our storytellers.
Memories. Yes.
They are the memories of our people. And this is how you will know who you are. Thank you and have a wonderful, wonderful evening. God bless you
You as
all.
well.
Thank
I'll
you.
say what I get.